Love your videos. You're absolutely right about Lennon. I've never seen a man's nose change so much. The whole Beatle fraud is so obvious. Thank you, Carl. And yeah, again, his nose changes so often. People have been trying to convince me it's the same man. That no, yeah, he has little changes, but no, it's the exact same person. I'm like, I'm the crazy one. No, at this point, no one can convince me that this is the same man from here onward. No, I won't have it. People cannot handle the narrative. They are weak and prefer to be lied to. You are doing great work, and maybe you will wake up a few sleeping sheeple. Not sure if Halliday is bio Paul. I still believe he is dead, maybe even killed. Poor Mal Evans and Epstein too. Cheers, keep up the good work. Thank you, Thorpenator. Hope I got your name right. I think you're right. They preferred to be lied to. I definitely agree with you there. Not sure if Halliday is bio Paul. Everyone has their own, beliefs here. I don't think there's an exact definite answer, for all of this. Nobody knows exactly. I do believe Halliday is Paul because there is a lot surrounding Colin and John, if you know what I mean. And I do believe Paul is dead was used to make an unimaginable amount of money. But I've never completely ruled out Paul is dead. I've always said I'll admit if I'm wrong, but I do believe it's for money. But thank you so much. Hi, I completely agree that very strange things have happened with the Beatles, especially with Paul and John, maybe also with Ringo. And I know that George was briefly replaced by John Phillips. I can see resemblance here. Yeah, I can. I've seen George look like this. If we're talking about disguises, which I don't believe I've covered, then yes, I can definitely see it. Just put glasses on him and yeah, well, he could definitely play as George for a little bit. If they needed a double to just, walk this way, they can just put big glasses on him and you can mistake him for George. Do these two look the same? They don't look the same to me. George's teeth are even longer in the second picture, and he looks like he changed ethnicity. Thank you. Supplanted but not dead. Their disguises look just like their replacements here. Do you guys think they were using the second replacements this early, or are these the originals? I guess this proves they can use disguises then. They look like themselves again here. Thank you. Not that bad. 411. Not that bad. 411. Sorry. That's something to think about. I believe that Paul alone was replaced. John's appearance changes over decades, but his unique face, voice, wit, and talent remain recognizably John. I don't believe the Beatles were a fake band that had people writing and singing their music. There is something supernatural about the Beatles. A lot of people have recognized that. They were incredibly influential, prodigious, and creative, and as dark as they were bright. Then they list a bunch of conspiracy theories, but the Beatles' conspiracy theory is just a no. A plain and simple no for them. It's not just his nose. How did his raise up? Why are his higher? Those don't just move on their own, even with weight loss. I don't believe for a second this is the exact same person, and no one can convince me otherwise. And I don't necessarily think the Beatles were fake. I know about Tabitha, but the originals, could have very well written their own music and songs. But look at that, we can at least agree that something did happen. Thank you, Mark C. After the last several years of investigating Paul versus Fall, I'm glad that I stumbled upon your channel. I was 11 years old when Sgt. Pepper came out. I had a huge crush on Paul for a few years. Had all of the teen magazines, knew everything about him and the Beatles. When I looked at the photos on the album, I knew it wasn't him. I told people he didn't look or sound right. I was mocked. The way I felt about the Beatles changed. Then came Paul is Dead. It was quite disturbing. Then I forgot about it. I always hated Wings and anything Fall. His music is nothing like when Paul was there. It came up for me again several years ago, and I came to the conclusion that Paul had been replaced, that he did not die. I also saw some things about John and George, possibly Ringo, in the late 60s and onward, and I thought John looked odd, thin, with a hooked nose, and his whole persona changed. The first John was quite handsome. As for George, I thought the later George didn't look right either. First was much better looking, and as for Ringo, that's one I hadn't looked at. Why not? I believe the powers that be wanted to see how easily the masses can be fooled, how blind they can be, and how they refused to admit that they were fooled. A lot of musicians from UK were Tavistock. Jane Asher's father was a psychiatrist with Tavistock. I truly hope that we have this validated sooner rather than later. Selfishly, I'm sick being told that I'm crazy, and it's not fair to the originals. I really hope that they've been taken care of financially. I was mocked. I'm sorry you were mocked. They clearly don't have as open of a mind. And that's not very selfish, in my opinion. I'm sick being told that I'm a conspiracy theorist and that I'm crazy too. And I'm very sick of all of this too. So I completely understand. Trust me. Jane Asher's father was a psychiatrist with Tavistock. All I looked up was Jane Asher's father, and this was the first result I got. A lot of suspicious deaths surrounding the Beatles. He was involved in hypnotism, and they do mention Tavistock. I really hope that they've been taken care of financially. It's unfortunate that Halliday did lose his job as custodian to Paul McCartney's house, but Colin did say not long ago at all that Halliday is okay. So we at least have that. Thank you, Robin. Strange things that happen within the Beatles. Stuart Sutcliffe suddenly dying. I got the idea from Booper Pot Pie that Stu became Andy Warhol. And I can see the resemblance. And Stu did want to be an artist, and I believe he would have had the qualities to become Andy Warhol. The Beatles' Butchered Baby album artwork. Paul's motorcycle accident. 1966 Candlestick Park. The Beatles suddenly stopped live performing forever. There was a lot going on in 66. I think it was probably safer for them to just stop. And I believe 66 is when their contracts ended. And it seems to me they really wanted out. A while after their last performance, we see a new guy that's supposedly Paul. The Beatles are suddenly addicted to drugs and start promoting LSD and others in their music. They stop doing interviews and other media stuff. None of them seem to be happy from 1967 onwards. Manager Brian Epstein suddenly dies. Beatles album artwork and songs start to have hidden messages, and a lot of them seem to indicate that Paul had died. I buried Paul. Turn me on, dead man. Sgt. Pepper artwork shows flowers in the shape of a left-handed guitar. Paul was the left-handed bassist. Very obvious changes in John and Paul's looks and personality. Paul got taller. John basically anorexic and addicted to heroin. They released a song called Helter Skelter, which inspired psychopath Charles Manson to murder people. I'm sure She Loves You wouldn't have made him kill people. After the Beatles, Paul gets arrested in Japan, and his fingerprints don't match up to the original Paul. Fawn gets assassinated. Fall says
drag, isn't it?
About John's murder, and he doesn't seem to care. They were best friends at one point in time. Heather Mills, Fall's wife, claims she knows something about Paul that will leave everyone devastated, and she could be killed for exposing it. George gets attacked in his home in probably a failed assassination attempt. If you watch Paul live today, or even since 1966, you will realize he cannot play bass as good and keeps looking down every second. Paul never did this. There's a lot more, but this comment is long enough as it is. Thank you. Exile Labia. Back then, wasn't the Enquirer like a joke newspaper? It had fake stories, right? For fun. What's wrong with his skin? There's footage of the original Beatles at one of their many press conferences answering a question about their contracts and when their contracts end. And I think this conference was in 65, and their answer was next year. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I know it was about the bass and him not knowing something about it. It's during one of their recording sessions. It sure would be helpful if I had those two things. I'll leave it in the comments. This video is long enough.